Welcome back. All right, news of the day video for all you fine people on the internet for your Thursday. It is April the 2nd. We're 2 weeks from the end of the regular season. We've got 14 games tonight in the NHL. We only have 2 teams that have clinched a playoff spot, but that could be as many as 6 after tonight is done. I'm not getting into all the clinching scenarios because they're always ridiculous, and in the end, we just see whether they clinch or not, and that's all that really matters. We'll go ahead with this board. We'll start at the top. That's normally how these things work. William Nylander has made it clear that if they do the retool that they're talking about in Toronto, he's fine with that. Retools, of course, are a year or two. If it's a full rebuild, he's not interested. Echoing what we heard in Vancouver from Jake DeBrusk a couple months ago. And I understand it. I understand for a player in their late 20s, early 30s, if they don't feel like going through that full rebuild and being in their mid 30s on the other side of it, because very often those players get sacrificed for the new stars that are brought in during the rebuild. I get it. So, yeah, this is part of the reason why Toronto's doing a retool instead of a rebuild, because they'd have to move out core 4 players. And then the question mark that's out there is, what if Austin Matthews wants out? Does that change what William Nylander's plans are? Would that change Toronto's? You'd think that's going to change Toronto's greatly if Matthews decides that he wants out of the Toronto market, but we shall see. One name that I keep hearing as to whether or not they might be coming back to be a general manager in the NHL is former Canucks general manager Mike Gillis. I've heard him raised as a possibility in Vancouver should Patrick Allvin be out at the end of this season, and there's rumblings Allvin could be out for Vancouver once the season is done. But his name, Mike Gillis, has also come up in relation to the Toronto Maple Leafs and whether or not he might be a good fit there. We're going to get into a lot of speculation over the next couple of months, and I try to weed this out. I will say, though, that Mike Gillis, I could see coming back to be a GM. I don't know how I'd feel if he came back to be a GM in Vancouver. I still remember the fans chanting, "Fire Gillis." I remember some of the contracts that he signed that I wasn't a huge fan of. I still remember the mess that was left behind that then Benning somehow made worse. And then Allvin came in, cleaned up bad contracts, and then signed other bad contracts. So it would be nice to get a GM that doesn't have that issue where they sign a lot of guys to contracts that we at least look at and go, that seems questionable. But at any rate, let me know your thoughts. We'll see what happens with the Canucks or with the Leafs and whether or not Gillis is a good fit. So the question I have for people watching this is a simple one. Mike Gillis, yes or no? Another shot at being a general manager. We have seen cases in the past where, like Don Waddell's a good example, where he had a tough time as a GM the first time around and figured it out the second time around. It can work. We'll see. But yeah, let me know your thoughts. Gritsuk with an upper body injury for New Jersey. He's having surgery, so he's out for the rest of the season. Considering New Jersey's season ends in 2 weeks, that's where we're at. So there's going to be a lot of this is a season-ending injury and done. So fewer injury updates from me, which I'm okay with. I'm honestly fine with that. And then I can start getting into more of the other content that we get into as we get into the playoffs. Travis Green is hopeful that Jake Sanderson can return this weekend. Sanderson is still in a non-contact jersey. It feels like we're in that window where he was supposed to be coming back. Also, Ullmark starts against the Sabres tonight. I kind of feel bad for Travis Green on this one. So Travis Green has also said that he pulled Ullmark from the game against Florida because the team was playing terribly, and he's not putting it on Ullmark. And I agree. The entire Ottawa Senators team played terribly to start that game. What is his other option here? James Reimer is a backup goaltender. Reimer's analytics have not been fantastic either. They're not going to call up Marilainen at this point. Marilainen was having a really rough year. You have to ride Ullmark out to the end of the season and hope that he's able to put together some kind of a run. So the coach has to come out publicly and say, well, yeah, I believe in Ullmark. He's our guy. We're going to go with him. So it's just he has to say that. He has to give that information to the press. Like, I believe in this guy. And for Ullmark, he's got to be better. We are looking at an offseason for Ottawa where if they miss the playoffs, I wouldn't be surprised if they try to find some way out of the Ullmark contract. We'll see. But Ullmark gets to start tonight against Buffalo. Who knows? Maybe playing against his former team will inspire him and he'll be ready to put on a great show. He has had some good games lately. It just gets overshadowed by the ones where his stats are kind of rough to look at. Yakimchuk is also in concussion protocol, so apparently if you're called up by the Senators, make sure all your insurance is in order, because odds are you're going to get injured. We've seen a lot of injuries on the Ottawa Blue Line. Big part of the reason why they're really crossing their fingers that Sanderson can come back for this weekend's games. I believe they play on Saturday and Sunday. So, yeah, we'll see how all that turns out. But Yakimchuk is just the latest to be injured for Ottawa. And the tricky part is concussion protocol. That can last for a few days. It can last for a week. It can be one of those very open-ended things. MacKinnon reached 50 goals last night. So in a game where I think Colorado would rather just use the memory wipe device from Men in Black and forget it ever happened, as well as probably the Nordiques jerseys, MacKinnon did reach 50 goals. He's the first NHLer to 50 goals this year. He will likely be joined by Caulfield. And that could be it. We could see 250 goal scorers this year in the National Hockey League. It could be. Just saying it could be. Burns is also set to play his 1,000th straight game on Saturday. And it's been ridiculous watching as Burns gets into his early 40s. He's still an effective defenseman. He's still playing a lot of minutes. And especially comparatively speaking to other defensemen who played into their 40s. So, yeah, Burns has had quite the run. It's been a really good story. And he reaches that 1,000th game in a row mark in the game on Saturday against Dallas, which should be an interesting one. We'll see if Dallas can be any closer to Colorado and if that game's really going to matter all that much. But at any rate, we'll see. The Stars are against the Winnipeg Jets tonight. Sam Carrick, it's an arm injury for him. He's week to week. He could return for the playoffs. It sounds like it's kind of open-ended, like not necessarily early in the first round, but he could return in time for the playoffs. It was one of those freak injuries that happens. And so we'll see. It definitely looked to me like it was either a break or he took his shoulder out of the socket. But since it's being listed as an arm injury, maybe he landed on his elbow. Maybe he twisted that arm in such a manner that he pulled. I have no idea. But Carrick is out for a while. The Buffalo Sabres are one of the teams that can clinch tonight. I think all they need to do is win and they clinch, but there's other scenarios where they could. I was looking through all the scenarios and I was like, nah. There's been previous years where I get into all the scenarios and then there's people correcting it in the comment section. It's like, I'm not. So they can clinch tonight. And while we're at it, we'll jump down here. Tampa, Minnesota, Carolina can all clinch tonight. If you're a Minnesota fan that watches my News of the Day videos, I think this is the fourth time that I've talked about Minnesota could technically clinch tonight. So I'm sure Minnesota fans would be glad not to continually be reminded the team could clinch and doesn't. Sometimes through their own inability to win that game. I think one of the 3 times they've been on the board before it was because if they won, they were in. The other 2 were for situations where if other teams won in certain conditions, but those conditions haven't worked out for Minnesota. So at any rate, they could clinch tonight. Tyson Foerster returns tonight for the Philadelphia Flyers against Detroit. This kind of feels like bringing in a ringer at the last minute. So we'll see how Foerster fits in. He's going to play a prominent role in his return to action, and they're playing against a Detroit team that's going in the wrong direction. So if you're a fan of Detroit, this is not welcome news. Foerster is a player who is a very effective, good young player for the Philadelphia Flyers and could be quite the difference maker for them. So we'll see how things go with Foerster back in the lineup for Philly. The reason I'm wearing a Florida jersey, more injuries. Yes, Ekblad has a broken finger. He's likely done for the season. Their season's 2 weeks from now. That's when that finishes. Kulikov has a broken nose, but he could play this weekend. Broken nose you can play with, broken finger you can't. Kulikov could play, but we'll see if they do or if they don't. Clearly, Paul Maurice and those in charge of the Panthers have more of a mind of just make sure they're healthy for next season. The rest of the season's basically done, which I think is a completely rational and the right way to look at things. So we'll see if Kulikov plays this weekend or not. Charlie McAvoy is 2 points away from 60 in a season. I was surprised by this one, to be honest. If he reaches 60 points, he would be the first Bruins defenseman to reach 60 points since Ray Bourque in 95-96. And all I thought was, didn't Kyle McLaren get close? Aren't there other defensemen for Boston who've been good offensively minded defensemen that got to 60 points? Like Char never got to 60 points, but yeah. Ray Bourque, 95-96, the last Boston defenseman to get to 60 points in a season. So McAvoy, if he gets there, it's another example of why he's one of the best defensemen they've had in a long while. John Tortorella, and I've said this before in recent tours of duty by John Tortorella, both in Columbus and in Philadelphia. I think he's mellowed a lot. Now, this is mellowed for Tortorella. So there's still definitely going to be moments where he says and does things that we say, no. But he definitely seems to be doing a good job with Vegas in that early on now he is talking to leadership. He is talking to the players. He's trying to get a good read on who has good chemistry with who. And it definitely sounds like he's taking a lot of feedback from them and trying to coach them and arrange them in such a way that it'll get them more success than what they've had lately. He says he doesn't feel like he has to be in control of everything all the time, and he did in his earlier years. So I know I've said this before, and when I said this when he was Philadelphia coach, this is right around where he was like, yeah, I don't know if I really want to do this. And then he was let go. He also talked about the fact that he wasn't wearing suits while he was coach of the Flyers, and he was kind of surprised he got away with it for as long as he did. So he's back to wearing suits behind the bench for Vegas. I don't really care what the coach is wearing as long as the team's winning. I've never said, wow, we got caved in 7-1. But what a spiffy suit the coach wore. That's a really nice suit. I'm surprised they didn't do better with that coach wearing a suit. And vice versa. If a team wins a game 8-1, I can't be like, well, I know they won, but did you see what the coach was wearing? What flagrant disrespect for the league. So, yeah, Tortorella wearing a suit becomes news because he didn't wear a suit when he was behind the bench for Philadelphia. Zach Hyman's considered a game-time decision tonight for the Oilers. They're playing against Chicago, so this is a game they should win. They're on a 4-game heater. Maybe they can make it 5. Trent Frederick also returns to the lineup, bottom 6 forward. We know about his contract and all that, but his contract's signed, so it's just a matter of how he's going to play from here. And the Oilers looking to gear things up as they get ready for the playoffs. Plus, the Ducks have not really secured that top spot in the division. They've had a couple of setbacks. It's left a door open for the Oilers to potentially finish first. And maybe we get the Ducks against the Golden Knights in the first round. Marchman and Lundestrom are both game time decisions. It's funny too. I get these little spelling errors on the board, or just I miss a letter and I think, is that just a sign I'm getting older? No, I've done that for 10 years. I've often said, if there isn't a mistake somewhere on the board, it's not my board, and you might want to call somebody. Anyways, getting back to it, Marchment and Lundestrom are both game time decisions tonight for Columbus against Carolina. It was a rough game for Columbus last time out against Carolina, so we'll see if things go better tonight. They're in Carolina, so I'm not holding my breath that Columbus is necessarily going to win tonight. What you have to hope for if you're Columbus is A, they get that win, and B, if they don't, that they get more help from out of town like they did the last time out on Tuesday, where nothing really changed in terms of the playoff chase in the East. I forgot to put this on a board the other day. I did see this. The Trey Augustine had signed his entry-level contract, which kicks in next year with Detroit. Makes a lot of sense. He will likely be the goaltender in Grand Rapids next year, probably the starter. His 3-year entry-level contract kicks in next year. He's considered to be a very good young goaltender who will someday be the starter in Detroit. At least that's where his career trajectory is expected to go. So yeah, there you go. You got everything, because I already got the teams that can clinch tonight, which is Tampa, Minnesota, Carolina, and Buffalo. So things could get a little bit less interesting if all of them clinch, although we know they're all going to make it anyways. So yeah, the real intrigue is those bottom spots both in the West and in the East. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. As always, hit like and subscribe in the event you may not have done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support. It's greatly appreciated. I will talk to you again soon.